Good afternoon. My name is Phillip Stephens, and I'm a Board Certified Clinical Chaplain. In this video, I want to provide you with some information about hospice chaplaincy. I want to share with you some of my thoughts in regard to the role and the primary responsibilities of a hospice chaplain. And while I don't expect to cover every aspect of hospice chaplaincy, hopefully this information will help you to make an informed decision about whether or not hospice chaplaincy is a good fit for you. Let's start off by considering the definition of hospice care. Hospice care is provided for people who are nearing the end of their life. It is a special kind of care which focuses on the quality of life for people who are experiencing an advanced life-limiting illness and also providing care for their caregivers. Generally speaking, hospice care is for a patient who's been diagnosed with a terminal illness and who is expected to have 6 months or less to live. But hospice care is not limited to only 6 months of treatment. It can be provided for as long as the person's doctor and hospice care team certify that the patient's condition is still one that fits the parameters and is still one that is life-limiting. The services are provided by a team of healthcare professionals who share a common goal of maximizing the comfort for a person who is terminally ill. Efforts are made to reduce pain and to address the physical, psychological, social, emotional, and spiritual needs of the people served. Those who work in hospice care do so because they recognize the value of caring for terminally ill patients and their families. They recognize the value of supporting them and helping them to experience a more positive quality of life as they deal with the terminal illness. So that's my definition of hospice care. Now I would like for us to consider the diversity of hospice patients. As a hospice patient, as a hospice chaplain, your patients will be very diverse. They will be diverse in regard to their demographics. You will have patients from every sector of society. You will have patients whose families are very well-to-do, and you will have patients whose families live by the most modest of means. You will also care for people of various ethnicities, various cultures, and various backgrounds. They will be very diverse in regard to their demographics. They will also be very diverse in regard to what they believe. You will encounter some who share your beliefs, and you will encounter many who do not share your beliefs. And you will care for some who don't share anyone else's belief because it seems that they have just come up with something very unique, something very personal to them, which they have used to find meaning and make sense of the world they live in. People you care for will be very diverse in regard to their response to the illness they have been diagnosed with. Some may be in denial. Some may be in shock, some may be angry, and some may have already come to terms with their illness, but now they are struggling to get their family to come to terms with their diagnosis and illness as well. Every patient will be different. Every patient will have their own story. Some will be receiving hospice care because they've had a sudden illness or injury. Others may have experienced a gradual decline in their physical and mental health. Some people even enter hospice care and then their health improves to the point that they no longer qualify for hospice care. You will serve a very diverse group of people who all face different and distinct challenges, but they will all be able to benefit from the spiritual and emotional support that a chaplain can offer. We've talked about the definition of hospice care. We've talked about the diversity of patients. Let's consider now some of the duties and daily tasks of a hospice chaplain. As a hospice chaplain, you will regularly meet with the hospice patients and document those interactions in the patient's medical chart. When you visit with a patient, you will also make time to minister to the patient's family. The care you provide will be person-centered. As such, you will need to assess and determine what are the needs of the people that I serve, and how can I best minister to them and meet their needs. Their needs may include, first of all, to help them come to terms with their illness. asking them what are their thoughts and emotions and what are their understandings are regarding their illness. You'll meet with them, make space for them, and give permission to them to voice their thoughts, their struggles, their anger, their sadness, and any other emotions they may be feeling. You will be present with them, inviting them to share their questions, their doubts, and their thoughts regarding their illness. You'll also help them process their illness in the context of their spiritual beliefs. Many times, patients who have been the spiritual and religious leaders in the family don't want their family members to know that they are upset or angry at God. They don't want their family to know that they are scared about dying. They don't want their family to see them as not having a strong faith in the midst of their illness. So while they're struggling with their illness, they also have this added burden of trying not to let their family down. Your role will be there to help them to process those things, to reflect on those things, encouraging them to hold on to the anchors of their faith, even in the midst of the doubts and fear and anger that they might be experiencing. Part of your role will be helping them to find meaning in their lives. As people prepare for the end of life, many of them want to answer this question, did I live well? You can help them explore that question through various activities. You can help them engage in a life review. Invite them to tell you about some of the highlights of their life, some of the most important times and most important people that they have enjoyed along the way. Ask them about their favorite music, their favorite vacations, and the most memorable times of their lives. It can be helpful to ask them, what would they do over again if they had a chance? Helping them to engage in this sort of life review and helping them reflect upon all of these wonderful times, bad times, good times, and all those times in betweens can help them to recognize some of the ways in which their lives have had value and meaning. Part of your role will be to help them maintain and perhaps even mend some relationships. Because in addition to the question, did I live well? As people are nearing the end of their lives, they often ask, did I love well? As their chaplain, you will help them to explore and reflect on that question. You will help facilitate their ongoing interaction with family and friends. You will engage with the patient and discover if there are some people that they might want to reach out to and speak with. There may be some relationships they want to mend before they pass or before they lose the ability physically to fully express themselves to others. On numerous occasions, I have worked with patients who have asked me to facilitate and be present in those types of meetings with an estranged family member or an estranged friend, so that the patient could apologize and seek to reconcile and mend that relationship. That may mean that you help the patient to make some phone calls. It may mean that you help the patient to write some letters or to practice some conversations that they want to have with a loved one. More than once, I have engaged in this type of role play with the patient because they were so nervous about sharing some thoughts, regrets, or sharing an apology with a loved one. On one occasion, I practiced a conversation with a patient multiple times so they could prepare for a visit from an estranged loved one. They wanted to make sure they got their words just right. But by the time the person came to see them, the patient had suddenly and quickly deteriorated physically, and they could barely talk. But as that person entered the room, they extended their arms, they whispered, "I'm sorry," and their friend embraced them and told them, "It's okay, I love you and I forgive you." And the two of them held each other and wept. They wanted to mend that relationship. As a hospice chaplain, you will also help patients prepare for their passing. You might be involved in helping them prepare for the funeral service. You might be involved in helping them determine what songs do they want to see played, what types of flower arrangements would they want to be there. I have helped families even choose funeral homes, and I've helped families to choose caskets. I've helped by officiating funerals and setting up memorial services for some patients. And I've facilitated locating someone from the patient's faith community to not only officiate their memorial service, but also to regularly visit the patient prior to their passing, visiting them and providing them with the prayers, the sacraments, and the spiritual care relative to their faith background that the patient found meaningful and that the patient wanted to receive. After a patient passes, the chaplain continues to support the family. Bereavement care extends for up to a year for the family members whose loved ones received hospice care. Bereavement care might involve helping the family access grief counseling and helping them access other resources. It may simply mean visiting the family regularly, checking in, offering a ministry of prayer and presence. It may mean helping the family connect with a minister or a support group within their own faith community. As a chaplain, you will also participate as a member of the interdisciplinary team. A chaplain spends a lot of time alone with patients, but that does not mean that the chaplain is not an important part of a larger team. As a chaplain, your interactions, observations, and documentation of your patient visits will play a vital role in providing information to the rest of the hospice team. Generally, on a monthly basis, you will need to participate in a case review for each of the patients assigned to you. You are a valued member of the interdisciplinary team. You'll work with the direct care staff, the nurses and the doctors, and you will help them to devise and implement an ongoing plan of care that meets the need of each patient. These are just some of the duties and the daily tasks. Let me talk for a minute or so about a couple of miscellaneous topics. Let's consider the driving and the potential for disconnect. As a hospice chaplain, you will spend a good deal of your day driving. There are a few hospice chaplains who are able to serve in one central location at a facility that caters solely to patients on hospice care. And so they go to that one place every single day, but that is the rare exception. Most chaplains spend a lot of time in their car visiting some patients in their homes, visiting others in various nursing homes, rehab centers, or hospitals. That driving requires some planning on the chaplain's part in regard to calling and scheduling visits that will be convenient for the patient and their family. And it also provides, just some thoughtfulness in regard to how do you want your day and your week to look. For example, you may want to schedule all of your visits on the south side of town for the same day so that you can maximize the number of visits that you make. You'll spend a lot of time in the car, and sometimes you won't be able to just stay on the south side of town as you planned. You'll get called to the north side, the east side, the west side. And so you might want to pack a lunch. You might want to bring some bottled water with you in the car so that you can tend to yourself throughout the day. And you'll always want to keep your supplies and your laptop with you so that in those times of downtime between visits, you'll have an opportunity to chart in some of the patient's files and make some notes on the things that are yet to be done for the week. Providing hospice care is a rewarding job. It's a rewarding ministry for everyone on the team, the direct care staff, the nurses, the doctors, and even the administrative team. But not only is it rewarding, it can be very draining. It can be physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually draining. Each day, every member of the hospice care team dips into their personal bucket of compassion, patience, and understanding, and they pour out compassion, patience, understanding into the lives of the people they serve. But because they're dipping into that bucket regularly, they also need to be reminded to regularly fill up those buckets. They need to be reminded to rest and recharge so that they will be able to continue to pour out into the lives of the people they serve. And for that reason, it is vital that the hospice chaplain, that any chaplain, stay connected and engaged with the team. As a hospice chaplain, you are called to encourage the other members of the team, help them engage in self-care, and provide a listening ear to them. Part of your role will be to encourage them to discover the best way that they can consistently and constantly fill up their buckets so that they can consistently and constantly rest and recharge so that they will be able to continue to meet the needs of the people we serve. As a chaplain, you cannot allow yourself to become so caught up in your list of people to see and places to visit that you become disconnected from the other members of the team. Well, let me close by sharing one more item with you, and that has to do with the difficult questions you need to answer if you are considering being a hospice chaplain. The two major questions I think a person has to answer in order to determine if hospice chaplaincy is right for them are, first, will I be able to handle ministering on a daily basis to people who are dying and to their families? The second question, will I be able to minister effectively to people who are hurting and grieving, but who believe differently than I do? I believe that everyone who seeks to be involved in chaplaincy needs to engage in self-reflection and consider those two questions or very similar questions. But those questions are especially important to address before embarking on the ministry of being a hospice chaplain, because every patient you interact with is a person who has received a diagnosis of having a terminal illness, and most of them have been told they are not expected to live for more than 6 months. So for the people you serve, that will be something that weighs on their mind. And for the people you serve, that expectation of not living more than 6 months, it will come to pass for most of them. You will deal with death on a regular basis. And for some people, that's not something that they are prepared to handle, or they would tell you that they're not equipped to handle that. So those two questions are very important, and you will need to answer those questions for yourself. I can tell you how I have answered them. I have served as a hospice chaplain, and I've also worked in a hospital on a palliative care floor where most of the patients were dealing with life-threatening and life-limiting medical issues. In applying for those jobs, I knew I would encounter death on a regular basis. As I was applying for those jobs, I had a friend ask me, why in the world would I want to subject myself to the sadness and the sorrow that would be involved with being involved with death on such a regular basis? And for me, I do say that is a difficult question, but I find the answer is pretty easy for me as a person. Before I ever considered being a chaplain, I served as a pastor for many years. And through the years, I had the opportunity to minister to several parishioners who had a terminal illness. And for me, I found that it was truly a blessing to serve in that capacity. To be able to provide a caring and comforting presence to a person who is hurting or to someone who is in the last stages of their life is truly a good work. I think it is one of the greatest gifts that we can share with someone. And so as a pastor who had previously ministered to several people who ultimately died from terminal illnesses, I understood the importance, the necessity, and the blessing of ministering to people in those situations. But it can be tough dealing with death on a daily basis, on a constant basis. That's why it's so important to engage in self-care and to make some time to rest and recharge yourself so that you can continue to serve your patients, so that you can continue to serve your coworkers in a meaningful way. It's important for a chaplain to debrief and to download some of their experiences with someone else. Every chaplain needs a chaplain. You will need someone with whom you can readily share your frustrations, your observations, and your emotions with. Everyone needs pastoral care, and everyone needs spiritual support sometimes, even chaplains. So because it's true that everyone needs spiritual support sometimes, it's a good reason for us to ask that second question. Are you prepared to provide spiritual support and pastoral care to people who do not share your faith beliefs and who are not members of your faith community? Some people struggle with that. And while it's always important to be able to contact and engage a member of the patient's faith community who can minister to them in accordance with their faith, it's just as important to be able to sit with someone who does not think like you, believe like you, and to be able to offer them the ministry of non-judgmental presence. Some people wrestle with that, or they wrestle with how can they do that and still be authentic to their own spiritual beliefs. And for me, I find that I draw from my own beliefs and from the scriptures of my faith, and that allows me to serve everyone, even, and I would say especially, people who do not share my faith or people who would profess that they have no faith. I draw upon my faith because my faith informs me that even if someone else is not religious, they still need spiritual support. My faith informs me that no matter what someone may believe or not believe, that we are all spiritual beings. My faith informs me that every one of us is made in the image of God, and for that reason, everyone deserves care and compassion and spiritual support during difficult times. One verse that has helped me in this regard is Ephesians chapter 4, verse 29. And it says, "Let no unwholesome word proceed from your mouth, but only such a word as is good for edification according to the need of the moment, so that it will give grace to those who hear." I understand that chaplaincy is not about preaching. It's not about proselytizing. It is about presence. And I believe my job as a chaplain is to be a caring presence for all of my patients and to minister to all of them according to the need of the moment. And I feel very comfortable with being a caring presence and just listening to people and finding out where they are, listening to them, finding out what are their cares and concerns, what are their hurts and their heartaches. I feel very comfortable helping patients explore what are their personal anchors and personal sources of hope and strength. I understand that a patient's source of hope and strength might be very different than my own. And in those moments, I seek to lovingly and prayerfully abide by the tenets of my faith and use words that are good for edification, words that build them up according to the need of the moment, so that it gives grace to those who hear, whether they believe like me or not. Providing care and compassion and spiritual support to someone who is struggling with all the issues that come along with a terminal illness, it is the right thing to do. It is a blessing for me to serve in that capacity. Those are my thoughts on hospice chaplaincy. I do want to thank you for listening. I hope that this has been something that has been valuable for you, and I hope that you have a great day.